into the the early 1970s. Nixon, of course, resigned, and somebody took over. Who took over? Ford. And remember, we only really need to know 3 things about Ford. Well, to be honest with you, you need to know 1 thing about Ford. He pardoned Nixon because he said we got bigger issues to work on, which is basically the economy, and you're going to see the economy nosedives. But he also, of course, vetoed the Great Society, and he appointed Daddy Bush, George H.W. Bush, as the CIA director. So when we come up into the election in 1974, Ford is not going to have a shot in anything that is known as HE double hockey sticks. And so with that, we need to look at why. So the first thing I want you to do is get out your notes, okay? 1 single sheet. Put your name on them, and let's get through the U.S. economy in the 1970s, because when you understand that, you will understand why little poor Jimmy Carter had a hard time. So U.S. economy in the 1970s, this is on the front of your paper. The first thing we're going to look at is something called a crisis of confidence. Crisis of confidence. So remember, everything in red is important. If you need to pause it, get it down, and then listen to me, you need to do that. But remember, listening on these notes is going to be super important, and that's what the quiz is going to be over a lot. So tell me about a crisis real quick. Crisis. Talk to your iPad if you want to. Crisis. Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? It's a total bad thing, okay? What is confidence? Confidence. Confidence is a good thing, really, but is there such a thing as too much confidence? Oh, yes, there is. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a little bit of a bad thing. So in the 1970s, we faced something called a crisis of confidence. The overextended society of the 1970s was defined by, now what you should be writing on crisis of confidence is low economic growth, high prices, and rising unemployment. Do any of those 3 things sound good? No. They suck. Then you need to put down that there is a distrust in government. Oh, why? Only because, LBJ got us into Vietnam. Nixon did that little thing called Watergate. And also then Ford let Nixon get away with it with pardoning him. Okay? And things like the Pentagon Papers and the Secret War and all this kind of stuff is going to make a lot of people, even the silent majority, a little bit upset with their government. There are going to be passionless presidents in this stream of the decade. Ford, which was there, and Jimmy Carter, which I truly love him so much. But I'm going to be honest with you, he didn't have, I don't think, what it took to be gutsy in the Oval Office. And also you are going to have, and I want you to make sure you get this down, an end to the Nixon era detente. Because some things are going to happen in the 70s that is going to stir the pot. Now, the one thing I really need to very much emphasize here, the economy of the United States since the 1950s, when everybody has to have a car, is based on one thing. What do cars run on? What? Are you saying it? Gas. Where does gas come from? Oil. Of course, petroleum, okay, is another way to say it. Sometimes you see different words. But with that, fossil fuels runs this country. And if we don't have it, you would absolutely positively see a difference in the temperament of Americans. In the 1970s, there are 2 great oil shocks you need to write down. In 1973, Arab members of OPEC, a group of oil countries, initiated a 5% cut on production. Now, when the production of something like oil goes down, supply goes down, price goes up. So even that 5% would have made price go up. But then, whoa, they put an embargo on the United States of America. Now, I want you to underline and circle that word embargo. In fact, I'm going to be looking for it when I check this one page when you're taking your quiz. Embargo. Do you know what that means? We put an embargo on Japan in 1941 for their oil, which means we cut off their oil. What did they do? They just bombed Pearl Harbor. OPEC, all of these Arab members of OPEC put an embargo on the United States. So that 5% cut in supply just turned into a 105% cut on the U.S. Our supply goes down all the way to 0. That means our price for what little we have shoots through the roof. This is going to be a disaster for the U.S. economy. Second reason, and this one's going to be a big one. Iranian Revolution in 1979 cut off oil and led to a gas shortage as well. So we totally have to find some gas. With that, to punish Israel's allies, Egypt, Syria, tactics. That's important. A little bit more world history. Here's what I really want you to look at. Out beside 2 oil shocks, kind of put a little bubble, fuel shortages led to a 200% increase in the price of gas and home heating. 200% increase. Now, while I am taping this, 2015, the gas right now is about $2.50. A 200% increase. Now, I'm not a math person. You all know this. You love me anyways, hopefully. Okay, but that means that it didn't go from $2.50 to $5. It went from $2.50 to $7.50 overnight. Look at some other stuff here. Prices increase, and y'all can just look at this. This obviously isn't in your notes, but take a look at this spike in crude oil. Average price per barrel, boom, right there in the 70s. Look at this. Average price per gallon, boom, all the way up right here. So, and I know we're looking at saying, oh my God, $1.20 a gallon, that would be awesome. But when it went from 40 cents, can you imagine what that would feel like? Again, $2.50 right now compared to $7.50. And who knows what it will be if you're still watching this video a couple years from now as my student. If you want to take a look at something really crazy, this right here, and let's just look at price per gallon, that there, 1973 is the OPEC oil embargo. Then, Iranian Revolution, 1979, that's that sharp increase. You're talking about some massive gas rationing. Take a look at this. Gas. Sorry, no gasoline. This guy, nice mustache, reading his paper. Take a look there. Gas rationing set Monday. A lot of the times you'd see flags like this. Green, everyone welcome. Yellow, not so much. Red, oh, no gas. Okay? You'd have literally pictures like this. People taking and lining up outside of gas stations. Really, really crazy to think about, okay? Gas shortage, no gas. Oh my gosh, take a look at this. Price per gallon, you can really look at that. Maybe I might look at that in class. I don't want to take too much time right now. Now, the other thing I want you to make sure you know is the economy in the 1970s. Carter is going to establish the Department of Energy. He actually, this is a good quiz question, establishes two departments in his cabinet, energy and education. But these oil shocks forced the U.S. to realize that we have a dependency on oil. Nixon had formed the EPA to kind of oversee a lot of industry's environmental impact, but Carter goes one step further, and he's going to create the Department of Energy, which emphasizes conservation and also how we produce oil. But still, the U.S. imports rose from 50% in 1973 to 1979. Mandated gas mileage, things like nuclear plants, the Alaskan oil pipeline that still we are debating in Washington over, at least we are right now. In 1970s, the economy grew stagnant. Unemployment grew to 9%, which is basically what it was when President Obama took over, 9-10%, and everybody was flipping out. I'm not kidding you. There is a massive parallel between the 2008 election and some of the elections with Carter involved in it. 1970s experienced huge inflation. Here's what I want you to do. Inflation right here, you know what that is. That is when price goes up, okay? It's because a lot of the times the money is worth less. Sometimes it's because it's printed more, but sometimes it's just because of a bad economy. Due to the Vietnam deficit spending, global food shortage, oil shocks, massive price increases lead to 5.5% decrease in real income, and this is what some of the stuff does in your everyday life. Milk and hamburgers rise 200%. That $5 Big Mac you just bought, it'd be $15. Car prices, 72%. Bread prices, 400%. It's $3 a loaf of bread right now, guys. $3. A 400%, that means that, 3 times 4 is, that's $12 for that loaf of Mrs. Baird's bread you wanted. Workers' wages, however, did not keep up with any of the rising prices. So it is a bad economy, which we oftentimes call a stagnant, doing nothing economy with inflation. Very fancy word. Stagflation. Say it with me. Stagflation. Stagnant. Not moving. Like, stagnant water, mosquitoes, nasty. Okay? Nothing happening in the economy. Inflation happening. Oh, it's ugly. Stagflation. Say it. And with that, I think we're going to go ahead and end this first part because that is the economy of the 1970s. Neither Ford nor Carter could stop stagflation. Nope, not. Carter's policy actually drove interest rates up 20%. Oop, that's kind of sucks. All right, so let's stop here and then we'll get on with his presidency.